In 2021, the Phoenix Suns were in the NBA Finals and had just lost Game 6 to a phenomenal performance from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks ended up closing out at home after Giannis put up one of the best final games I've ever seen, where he scored 50 points. You can see Devin Booker as he left the court after seeing the Bucks celebrate, mentioning the words, "Damn." It was a very heartbreaking loss for Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns, who were one of the hottest and best teams in all of basketball this year. The duo of Devin Booker and Chris Paul with the up-and-coming DeAndre Ayton and the other pieces on this team made this one of the most fun teams in the entire NBA. So, although they had lost to the Bucks, they were still young. Devin Booker was 24, DeAndre Ayton was still young. The only old player they had was Chris Paul. So surely they will be right back here. Not so fast. And in the following season, they were amazing. They were 64-18, which made them the #1 team in the Western Conference. Devin Booker was having an All-NBA caliber season. DeAndre Ayton looked even better than he did the year before, and it looked like the Suns were going to go right back to the finals. And they started off pretty well. They beat the New Orleans Pelicans in the first round, but then in the second round, they would face a man named Luka Doncic. And Luka would go on to dominate this entire series, and Phoenix would end up losing in 7 in a very embarrassing loss on their home floor. And this loss essentially changed the entire trajectory of this franchise. This franchise went from one that was looking at two potential up-and-coming players in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton to trying to speed up the timeline a little bit. And they had the pieces to do it. You had Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and a couple of picks. You can essentially do a lot of stuff with this trade package. So Phoenix went out looking for a superstar or just somebody to complement Devin Booker, especially with DeAndre Ayton having some questions around him. And they will go out and get Kevin Durant. And the first year with Kevin Durant wasn't too bad. The main thing that you struggled with was injuries. You had Devin Booker and you had Kevin Durant. And when they were on the floor, they were pretty good. They just obviously needed some things to be put around them, maybe some supporting pieces, whether that be shooters, better defenders, a better big man presence than DeAndre Ayton, because DeAndre Ayton was demanding a lot of money, and you weren't going to be able to pay these three players. But then they would end up getting a new owner, and Matt Ishbia wanted to make another big splash. After already getting Kevin Durant, it was time to get somebody else, and he opted to go get Bradley Beal from the Washington Wizards. Now, this was a huge trade at the time. I mean, Bradley Beal was in Washington, and he was still decent, but he had the biggest contract in the NBA, and nobody really wanted to trade for him because of how big that contract was. Because the way he was playing, he wasn't good enough to be the highest paid player in the NBA. He probably wasn't even a top 20 player in the NBA at this time, yet he was getting paid the most money versus anybody else in the league. However, Matt Ishbia thought if you have them, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and you just bring in Bradley Beal, you will be okay. But this isn't the old. Kevin Durant had already tried this with the Brooklyn Nets, and that effectively was the end of super teams as we know it. And trying to put Bradley Beal in the Suns didn't work out well for them. And ever since that happened, it has been horrible for the Suns. And because this didn't work out, it kind of left Phoenix in a crossroads. You don't want to trade Devin Booker because he is your star. He's the Suns. When you think of the Suns, you think of Devin Booker. He's been there his whole career. He's been there through thick and thin. So you don't want to look at trading him first. Nobody wanted Bradley Beal. They had tried. And that just left Kevin Durant to be on the chopping block. And it's kind of crazy because you traded so much stuff for Kevin Durant, multiple picks, multiple very key players to that 2021 championship team, NBA Finals team. Yet, now you're going to trade the exact player that you got in that trade away because you weren't able to maximize. You didn't put the right pieces around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. You made a horrid trade for Bradley Beal and essentially gutted your whole team for a useless big three that we saw wasn't going to work. And this should really serve as a lesson as to what bad asset management can do for a team. Everybody wants to have great players on their teams, and the big names, they do a lot. They bring in ticket sales, they bring in fans, they bring in attention, they bring in money, they do a lot. But if you want to seriously win a championship, which will also do all of those things, you have to learn how to properly build a team. Take note from Sam Presti. Sam Presti was one of the best GMs, or is one of the best GMs at managing assets. I mean, yeah, he has the one hiccup with James Harden. The James Harden trade and not trying to pay James Harden because you didn't think he was worth the money for whatever reasons. That's understandable, and that's a big miss on Sam Presti. But since then, what has he really missed on? The OKC Thunder just won the championship a couple days ago, but just because of how great Sam Presti has been. He saw that they had Paul George. Paul George and Russ, they weren't maximized. So he sold on Paul George while he was still high. Yeah, there were some injury concerns with Paul George, but he was an MVP caliber player around this time. That's the level that he was playing at. So while you see the future, you sell high on him. And while selling high on him, you get a great return. You get a bunch of draft picks. You end up getting one of the best players in the league, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and you're able to get a bunch of different pieces to build around him. And you know how to properly mortgage and sell these pieces. Because even when you had drafted a Josh Giddey, and you saw that Josh Giddey wasn't going to be too well in this team, and some other things happened that led to you wanting to get rid of Josh Giddey, you sold on him. And you sold on him for a very key piece to your championship team, and Alex Caruso, and what is going to be looked back as one of the most crucial trades to this OKC run. And if OKC is able to ring off a couple of championships and go on a run and start a dynasty, this is what you're going to look at, because this is how, as a GM, you should manage your assets. But Phoenix obviously doesn't know how to do that. Matt Ishbia, he was a new owner. He wanted to come in and he wanted to make a big splash as an owner, getting a big name like Kevin Durant. Then you're getting Bradley Beal. And yeah, that got the fans excited for a little while until they realized y'all didn't have any defense. Y'all didn't have any good supporting pieces. Y'all didn't have anybody to handle the rock and alleviate some pressure when one or two of these players are on the bench. Y'all didn't have anything outside of these three, and y'all were essentially one of the worst teams in the league. They were the number 11 seed in the league, and that's what happens when you don't know how to manage your assets. You trade away all those players when you probably could have gotten better. Because essentially, you traded all those people for a Jalen Green and a Dylan Brooks and a 10th overall pick in this year's draft and some second-round picks. Now, what you do from here, that's on you. Now, the spotlight is on you again. But it's not really looking so good, and if I'm a Suns fan, I'm not really too optimistic. Now, to be fair, the Kevin Durant trade really wasn't the big issue. I had no problem with Phoenix trading for Kevin Durant because he had a phenomenal career or time in Brooklyn, and he looked like possibly the best version of himself that we have ever seen. So trading him to Phoenix for those players, it's not a horrible trade. And not to say that these players are easily replaceable, but you can replace them. Over the years, you can bring in somebody for defense here, bring in somebody for shooting here, bring in another playmaker next to Devin Booker in that backcourt. You can make a variety of moves to offset getting Kevin Durant. But you can't do that if you have Bradley Beal, because those are just too many big contracts on one team. And Bradley Beal is not the same player that he was early on in his career, and he does nothing but hold the Suns back at this point, unfortunately, just due to his contract not matching up to his level of play. So the Suns were trapped in NBA purgatory due to this trade. Now, after this KD trade, they said they're looking to buy out Bradley Beal and look at what they can do for the next steps. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they move forward after this trade, because do you look into trading Devin Booker and rebuilding full-time? Because you're going to keep Jalen Green. That's what you said. You have the 10th pick. You're probably going to draft somebody in that range. I don't know what you do, but you see how that one decision and not knowing how to properly make use of the assets that you are willing to get off of can severely handicap your franchise. And if I'm a Suns fan, I'm not really feeling too good about this entire situation. If I'm a Suns fan, I would be really hard to be a Suns fan, point blank period. And I think, honestly, if you are a GM, you should look at what people like Raphael Stone are doing, because that Kevin Durant trade was amazing. You should look at what Sam Presti has done with the Thunder. These teams have made moves that are very calculated to put their teams in the best position. They have become masters at maximizing the window for their players while also knowing when and what moves they need to make. This trade for the Rockets, if Kevin Durant, let's say it doesn't work out and they're still not a championship contender or winning the championship like they want to, well, Kevin Durant's 37, and he can be gone in a couple of years. And you still have Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith Jr., Reed Shepherd, to 2027 first-round pick, a 2029 first-round pick. You still have flexibility to get better. With OKC, we already know how many picks they have, and they still have Nikola Topic coming off the bench, and we see what type of depth they have as well. So if they wanted to make a move, any move that they made would not be severely handicapping themselves. If they wanted to go out and get a Trey Murphy III or a Cam Johnson, whatever they want to do, they can do it and still be put in a great situation because of what Sam Presti has done. These are essentially the playbooks to having a good team and a successful run in the NBA. But end of the day, these are just my opinions on what can happen if you don't know how to properly manage your assets, and you end up making not only one trade that can be kind of head scratching, but two back to back after trying to go all in on the core that eventually failed you. Let me know how you guys felt about the Rockets trade and how you feel about the Suns this upcoming season. And let me know if I'm wrong. But that's all I got. And until next time, peace.